Our next speaker is rather timely given all the activity taking place in the supply chain right now, which is globally, there's activity in the supply chain. So Adam Cunha is head of key client sales for AP Moller-Maersk, one of the largest global companies most people have never heard of, really. With so many conflict areas around the world that are affecting key shipping lanes, there's got to be some impact on the overall supply chain and ultimately to us as consumers. So we've asked Adam if he could present Maersk to those who may not know much about Maersk and what Maersk does. Maersk is more than just a steamship line, and give some insight as to how these conflict zones have impacted operations and some of the strategies that Maersk is dealing with as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Adam Cunha from Maersk.
Good afternoon, everybody. I did also want to take the opportunity to thank you for having me and allowing me to represent the great company that is AP Moller-Maersk. As mentioned before, my name is Adam Cunha. My position at Maersk is head of global key client sales for tech, automotive, chemical, as well as fast-moving consumer goods. You could probably also find me in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest job title. Very happy to be here and share a little bit about Maersk, a little bit about our history. Certainly, right, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've come from, so I do want to share that story a little bit with you all. But I think most importantly, given what Gary said, everything that is going on in the world, all the changes that are happening right before our very eyes, how we as a company globally are adapting and expanding further so that we can better serve our customers around the world. So jumping in really quickly, I think this is a really important item here. This is something that certainly inspires me every time I remind myself of it, right? A lot of times we can get driven down into the micro, but I think this is a very powerful macro number that Maersk as a company is responsible for delivering roughly 20% of all the goods that reach each and every one of you, right? So it is a company that does have its hands everywhere, that it is involved everywhere. Hopefully, as part of my role at Maersk is to try to expand that and make sure that we are reaching individuals all across the globe. From our humble beginnings, this is a family company. It remains a family company, originally founded in 1904 by Arnold Peter Moller. He actually named the company after his grandmother, and it's the odd term of where the Maersk names come from. Back in Denmark, where the company was founded and remains headquartered still today, is that Maersk stands for marshland. So where his grandmother came from, they named that everybody from that area essentially Maersk. And so when that name came to fruition, essentially, so now you know the background. It's kind of ironic that a vessel steamship company is named after marshland, but now you have the true facts. So it was founded in 1904, then went on to Maersk McKinney Moller. He was essentially took over the reins after his father passed. A little history behind the logo, right? A lot of people ask where that logo comes from. It was essentially during one of the voyages, you were at that time you were allowed to have your wives come along with you because of the long distances of the voyage. So there was one particular journey where the wife got sick on that journey, and he remembers that he went up to the top deck, and he was a very religious man, prayed to his God, and swore that he saw a star and asked for her healing. So once that, she of course did survive. She made it through the voyage and led a very long and happy life. But from that point on, he started painting the 7-pointed star, which is the common star in Denmark, on the vessels. And of course, I'm hopefully, and if not before today, now as of today, you now know and recognize the 7-point star of AP Moller-Maersk. Maersk is a company that is driven very highly off of its values. These values have not changed in a very, very long time. If I'm not mistaken, these are the founding values, which are constant care, humbleness, uprightness, our employees, and our name. And these are all things that AP Moller-Maersk take very seriously. It's one of the things that drove me to want to be a part of this company. It's something that we make in all of our decisions. We take into account in all of our decisions. And one of my favorite parts of this is it's an employee-driven company, right? I've personally been able to have one-on-one conversations with our global CEO as though he wanted to hear everything I had to say, right? And I've seen that happen from every angle inside of the company, and something that gives me a lot of pride to be able to represent Maersk, not just here today, but also outside in our industry. Our purpose, and I think this speaks back to that 20% number, right, that I shared at the beginning, is to improve life for all by integrating the world. You'll hear that word a lot out of my mouth in the next 15, 20 minutes or so, is how Maersk has decided from not just being a end-to-end or from a port-to-port steamship line, not just doing the on-carriage or the pre-carriage, right? That's the trucking pickup or the trucking delivery, but now getting inside of all of the aspects within the supply chain. So we are very purpose-driven, understanding that it's not just moving cargo, right? We're not just bringing clothes, auto parts, computers, you name it, right? Laundry detergent across the world. We're impacting people's lives. We're taking a part in their day-to-day activities, in their businesses, and everything that they do. A quick timeline of Maersk. I will not go through every item here, but as I mentioned before, founded in 1904. Our first dedicated single service line was created in 1928. That was actually coming from Japan to the United States. That's actually a customer that is still within my personal portfolio within my team. It's an automotive company based in North America. Going through here, as you can see, as we start to expand out through the world, it started, of course, much more so as a local Danish, Denmark, Scandinavian shipper, then expanding from Asia Pacific to United States, expanding into Europe, and of course now essentially expanding across the globe. From that point, as opposed to just the shipping lorrying portions, as you can see in 2001 is when APMT or APM terminals, AP Moller-Maersk terminals, apologies. That's when that was founded and began. So we started to initiate our expansion outside of just the port-to-port movements of cargo. In 2016 is when we, as a company, decided that it was time to get into all other aspects of the supply chain. So, right, when you think of just the ocean portion, that's a very small fraction, even though it is a major part of it where a lot of cargo is transported. It's just a small fraction of how the global supply chain is operated. So Maersk as a company decided that if we were going to truly have an expansive impact and take advantage of all of that, that we had to expand our reach a little bit. 2019 is when Damco was officially founded. So Damco, that was the former freight forwarding side of AP Moller-Maersk. And then 2021 is when we had the first vessel, the green methanol fueled vessels that we're starting. And that's going to speak to our sustainability journey that I'll share with you shortly. So this was really the map of our journey, right? You're going to see a lot of colors up on this screen. We didn't build a lot of this from the ground up. We grew in these spaces a lot by acquisition. Maersk, at its heart and core, is an asset-based company. However, we do also realize that in order to contract and expand within our customer segments, that we do have to, one, rely on our assets and have that planning and consistency and control, but also have that flexibility to be able to expand out just like a traditional 3PL/freight forwarder would do. So along this time, you'll see the brands of Hamburg Süd, right? We acquired Hamburg Süd. So that's another shipping line, very prominent in Latin America. Sealand, that's a very prominent, another steamship line from Latin America, northbound, southbound. We started purchasing customs brokerage firms, ground transportation, full truckload, less than truckload. That was the performance team purchase. SAF Marine, Damco, that's when that started to merge. Visible is an e-com company. B2C is the same thing, e-com and Europe-based. Senator is essentially an airline in a smaller freight forwarder that was based in Germany. LF Logistics is a contract logistics company, and the most recent purchase and acquisition was Pilot, which is a North American-based FTL, LTL provider. So along that journey, right, we are still, I was speaking last night with some of the students that we are certainly in a storming stage, right? We're in a transformation. I would love to say that we do everything perfectly and impeccably, but that wouldn't be very upright. So I wouldn't be upholding my values if I said that we do that perfectly. But we are in that phase of absorbing all of these companies, their cultures, their technologies, their ways of doing business, their expansive reach into the Maersk way of doing things. So now I can show you a much prettier slide that doesn't have all of these colors, that this is what essentially the new Maersk is, right? The new Maersk. We don't want you to think of Maersk as a global steamship line, which we are, but that's not all we are, right? We are truly an end-to-end provider. The core segments that we have within the company are transported by Maersk, fulfilled by Maersk, managed by Maersk, and powered by Maersk. So those are all the different entities within not just the physical transportation, but how we plan, how we watch over the data that we're able to provide our customers are all within this scope. So you can see we're connected by our physical assets. We have our digital platforms that we are beginning to utilize and continuing to develop both in-house as well as third party. And of course, the end goal of this is to get insights driven, right? The term AI, machine learning have been involved. That's a key part of it, right? Learning trends, understanding what our consumer behavior is, what our customer behavior is, in order to be in the right place at the right time with the right assets in that right service. So that is essentially the end goal. This is a bit of an expansive picture, almost a repetitive one of the previous, but I think it does highlight that we do have the areas, what we call L&S. So that's our logistics and services. We have, of course, our ocean as our core, and then we have our terminals. So we are able to provide all of the end-to-end benefits by integrating all of these core aspects of the supply chain. This one, I certainly don't expect you to squint your eyes and read. I really just wanted to show you how fancy we are and how many products that we have. To show you all the areas that we are now in. So we are literally in everything. So as before, again, I know I'm beating on that topic a little bit, that we were traditionally for many, many years, strictly a steamship line. Now, as you can see here, we are in everything. One of the most important goals within Maersk is we have a very aggressive environmental goals. So we have what we call net zero 2040. So by 2040, as a company in all areas of our operations, and so that's all of the busy slide that you just saw before, in all of those, not just in maritime shipping, our goal is to be net zero emissions by 2040. As you can see here, we're well on our way. The biggest milestone that's actually creeping up on us pretty quickly is 2030. And that's where we're going to have a lot of the major pillars put into place. So essentially, as you can see here on the ocean side, making sure that a good majority of our ocean freight is moved on clean methanol fuels, green methanol. That is the fuel of choice for Maersk currently. Air freight, right? We do have SAF. It's essentially the air freight fuel equivalent of a green methanol. It's the environmentally friendly fuel. From a landside transportation, we have large investments all over the United States and Europe right now, and some places in Asia for electronic vehicles, as well as alternative fuels. Logistics facilities, the use of solar panels, reusable water, all of those aspects, anything that's a controlled Maersk building, utilizing those sustainable and low environmental impact materials. And last but not least, certainly our terminals, right, with the increase of automation, maybe less so in North America, but other areas we're allowed to automate further to make sure that we are doing our best to play our part in the global supply chain and the reduction of greenhouse gases. So as you can see, everything that's established essentially as those landmarks in 2030 will then be expanded upon and hopefully reaching our goals in 2040, or by 2040, I should say. This is a good example. Of course, a little bit of a funny picture here. As you can see here, myself and my colleague Doug here, we had the privilege of being at the unveiling the vessel naming ceremony of the Aletta Maersk. This was in Long Beach, California, a couple weeks ago. As you can see, you probably can't see her, but that's Chloe Kim. She's a Nike athlete. Nike is one of the main users of our green ethanol fuel, along with HP. HP is one of my customers in my portfolio. Chloe Kim is a two-time gold medalist for snowboarding, so she was invited to be the vessel's godmother. Again, didn't know that happened before, that was a thing before I went to that event, but every vessel does have a godmother, and they are there at the vessel, the christening ceremony, where they bust a bottle of champagne across that vessel, and that's supposed to give the vessel good luck as it goes. And every Maersk vessel within its line does have a family name. So Aletta, if I'm not mistaken, is somebody within the family's great niece. Again, don't quote me on that. But it is a family name. But this is the 4th green methanol vessel in the world. This was the first one ever to call the port up a North American port. So really prestigious event. I was really honored to get to be there and be a part of it. As you can see by my goofy smile there, I still get excited about these types of things, even after nearly 2 decades in the industry. So I'm sure all of you are here just starting, right, your global supply chain career. I promise you it doesn't get boring. You get to do cool stuff and exciting stuff like this. So I think a quote that I wanted to share from one, I think a very well-known poet, Mike Tyson. You may have heard of him. I know I believe he trained closely, right, in Catskill, if I'm not mistaken. But everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. right? This is, I think, we all talk about the data, the intel, how do we map things out? How do we get things to customers? Then these things come along, right? The major disruptions we are living through one right now as we speak. We're living through several right now as we speak, right? If we're thinking just from 2019, all of the curveballs, all of the things that companies such as Toyota have to deal with on a daily basis, because this gets thrown at you, right? A global pandemic. We have the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Suez Canal blockage in Red Sea, severe weather events, right? We just had a horrific hurricane just pass through the country. Panama Canal, right? The water levels going up and down. Labor strikes, one that we're living through right now as we speak, as well as miscellaneous accidents, right? We had the Port of Baltimore, one that this comes to mind. All of these things are constantly being thrown at the industry. People that are trying to find the best way to get that new family and their newborn baby, their car at the right time, at the right place, right? All of these things are standing in their way. So what is it that we at Maersk are trying to do to help that become more feasible and in a greater possibility? So we did a study that we estimated $1.6 trillion was missed revenue just because of an average of each year, just because of disruptions, right? That's all that money thrown away. There's an estimate right now, so if we want to put that into a closer context, for the U.S. port strike, every day that the U.S. economy is stopped, it has an estimated cost of $5 billion. $5 billion every single day that this country is stopped just because of the U.S. East Coast stopping the inflow and outflow of goods into this country, right? So it's a very major impact here. As you can see, from a logical answer would be, okay, we'll just sail it around, we'll sail it to another port, we'll truck it across the country. All of those things have environmental impacts, they have increased costs. From what we did as an answer, first I'll speak to the Red Sea. We were sailing around the Cape of Good Hope, which we continue to do because we're not sailing through the Red Sea. All of that has an economic impact. And we did have to, for a period of time, and are having to, speed up our vessels. That punches our 2040 sustainability goals right in the face. So how are we able to do this? What are we doing to try to transform this? Certainly the answer is we can't go faster, right? And I think it's a bit of a topic to touch here of thinking slower. Don't try to go faster, thinking slower. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go slower, but still deliver that consistency and reliability that our customers demand from us. So we are just launching, it will launch in February of next year, what we call Network of the Future. So this is a combined network between ourselves and Hapag-Lloyd. It's called the Gemini Cooperation. So many of you may be familiar with the M2 Alliance. That was our Maersk and MSC. That was scheduled to end in February of next year, so that we are now transitioning. I know the MSC is going on their own, and Maersk has decided to pair with Hapag-Lloyd. So what that new network consists of is roughly 300 vessels with a capacity of 3.4 million TEUs. So that's 20-foot equivalent units. That's trans-Suez routes, and 341 vessels with 3.7 million TEUs on the Cape of Good Hope routing, right? So we do have to build two plans. A funny incident, again, speaking of things punching you in the face, is our port network team designed this network pre-Red Sea. And of course, Red Sea happened and Red Sea prolonged. We're about to reach the 1-year anniversary of the Red Sea conflict. So this is something that our networking team had to completely re-engineer. So we are actually launching 2 separate network plans, so that depending on what that global outlook looks like, which is the one that we will release at that time, and we of course shift in between. How do we make this work, right? I would actually like to say this word, transshipment, to a supply chain professional and watch their face. But if you want to scare a supply chain professional, just dress up for a transshipment as Halloween, right? You completely scare the crap out of them, right? The word transshipment is an ugly word in our industry. So when you think of transshipment, you think, oh, the container gets off the vessel, it gets lost somewhere, and then eventually gets back on a vessel and gets to my destination. You can't plan for it. It's unpredictable. So knowing that, over the last several years, Maersk has invested roughly $3 billion into our terminals, into our APMT, AP Moller-Maersk terminals, to work on that efficiency, right? We've been able to achieve roughly 15 to 20% improvements in our efficiency, to have that data, have that intel inside of those terminals to make sure that we have complete and total control. Actually, our marketing team is in the works of creating a new word, so we don't have to say transshipment anymore, just because we do get that cringe look every time we say it. But that is essentially the basis of how this was made possible, right? We get the question every now and again of why now? Why is it that you are now releasing this network? Is because we weren't ready yet, right? From a hub and spoke standpoint, which is the new model of our network as opposed to strings, we have to have strong, efficient, data-driven terminals. So that's where this portion comes in. Next, we will be using our fleet of shuttles. So as opposed to saying feeder vessels, right? Feeder vessels is a commonly heard term where they're just coming in to feed a major port. We're actually using shuttles. So all they do is go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we're using our larger vessels to take the main lanes that will have far fewer ports of call. And we'll be using these shuttle vessels to feed in and out, right? So that essentially will cut down on the risk. If there's a delay at an earlier port, that will help us adjust faster to be able to still service on time the future ports down the line. And it does give us that ability to have that flexibility, that agility, extension of those main lanes, as well as our ability to scale, right? If we see a problem, we see a trend, we're able to adjust much quicker as opposed to rerouting an entire string of vessels. And of course, essentially our end goal of this is 90% reliability. And that's also, I'm sure that gets a lot of eyebrows raised currently when we share that with our customers. But that is the end goal and what we still believe that we're able to achieve, not not immediately out of the gate, but it is something that we are driving towards, that we believe based on this model with those adjustments, not every day, but on an average, that we should be able to obtain 90% vessel sailing reliability and schedule reliability. A little bit going on into another area within Maersk, right? We can't do all of these studies. We're not able to do all the environmental impacts, have service in productivity improvements without innovation, right? So we do have 2 innovation centers. One is in Shanghai, the other is in Jersey City, New Jersey. So not too far away. So if you want to come visit, please let me know. So we have all of these areas where we are expanding and learning from the outside community, right? We need the outside input. We have strategic innovation partners. We have governmental partners. We have external funding as well as partnerships on that aspect. We have internal customers who are willing to be willing guinea pigs for us. We have internal enablers, right? I myself was a part of an educational program that we partnered with MIT to take us through machine learning and AI capabilities. So trying to train from within to help foster and develop new ideas, as well as external customers. So we have these innovation centers where we are trying out some new ideas, trying to stay at the forefront of technology, working with venture capitalist companies to allow us to adopt and learn essentially the latest and greatest that are going on within the industry. So just a quick couple areas of the key focuses here. We are focusing on solution and models that support supply chain resilience, right? That's, I think, more important these days, is having a resilient supply chain, one that can take the hits from those disruptions that are inevitable. They will always keep happening. Analyze and optimize distribution in our logistics networks, right? Being an asset-based company, we really have to make sure that we're deploying our assets in the right places at the right time. Otherwise, it's literally throwing money away. So that's something that we're very focused on. Climate neutral solutions and sustainability. There's no way we're going to get to our 2040 goals if we don't have the latest and greatest technologies and finding out those trends. Supporting growth and transportation. Alleviate labor constraints with novel attractions and augmented solutions. That's a really fancy way to basically say automation within a warehouse, right? We have tools that do picking and packing. We have drones that go through and do inventory checks. We have automated conveyor belts that can detect flaws in a product and kick it off the line to not disrupt the line. So all of those things that take place within our facilities that allow us to adapt and hopefully still maintain that very important end customer deadline. Innovation education, as I just mentioned, both internally and externally, as well as the design and deploy safety solutions. So as a company driven off of our values, people first, any way that we can help our employees do something physical safer, we will do it. Any questions around this or for further information, I'm happy to answer anything after, but we do have a website, innovation.maersk.com. So please feel free. You do have to register because it does want to make sure that we have visibility to who is interacting with our website. And last but not least, in closing here, This is hopefully how you will walk away from today remembering Maersk, right? Not as the big, beautiful vessels, which is still a huge part of our culture, but as a company that is connecting and simplifying global supply chains. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Maersk? I find Maersk is one of my blue chip companies, by the way.
Adam, thank you. So this is a very informative presentation. So I have two questions. So can you comment on the ongoing dock worker strike, happened in the major, US ports? And I just reading the news today. So at least 45 container vessels stuck outside major US ports. And President Biden is kind of getting involved in the negotiation with the try to making progress. So my question is Maersk involved in the labor negotiation? Second is, what's the impact to Maersk and how do you adapt given such a big disruption? So it's been ongoing for 3 days. I don't know how long it's going to take to resolve the dispute. So any comments? Thank you.
Yes. So I can answer the first question very directly and very definitively. The answer is no. Maersk is not involved in that negotiation. That's between the USMX and the ILA. So we are essentially a bystander in all of that negotiation. Of course, we hope, just like everybody else, that it's a quick and fast resolution that gets all parties essentially to where they feel that they have a fair bargain for each side, but we are not at all in any way, shape, or form involved in those negotiations.
So maybe explain what USMX is to everybody.
So that is essentially the Forum of Foreign Carriers. So that's, I think, where the confusion comes in, is that because Maersk is a foreign-based carrier, being a Danish company, that we would be involved, but is a separate entity from Maersk. It's I don't know, I should know what the acronym stands for USMX, but it's essentially, it's the Foreign Carriers Association, because all the carriers that are coming in are a foreign base.
I was going to say the second part of the question.
Second part of the question, yes. So we do have contingency plan. I was actually on a call again this morning. We have a call roughly every 3 days to inform us of the latest status. So on the U.S. East Coast, Maersk, I can only speak for Maersk. I can't speak, of course, for my colleagues in the other steamship lines. We have 26 services that touch the U.S. East Coast. So we have a contingency plan for every service. So they all vary, right? Some of them, first and foremost, it's sit and wait. Right. We hope that this is resolved as quickly as possible. Of course, that cargo, some of it has traveled literally across the world, and it is outside of the dock or soon to arrive. So first and foremost, it's sit and hold. Depending on that service, depending on the customers on that vessel, depending on X number of factors, that will determine steps 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right. Does that mean we omit port, go down, drop off cargo at the closest location? Does that mean that we reroute somewhere else? Does that mean that we hold and take back to origin? All of those factors are within play, but it's all basically on a customer level decision and a string level decision. I hope that answers your question. I know I'm not allowed to comment too far on that comment. Thank you.
But you can also see the photograph, because a lot of cargo now is being flown.
Yes, yes. Please use Maersk Air. We love air cargo.
Other questions? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you for the talk. You mentioned supply chain resilience as an innovation area. How does Maersk think about quantifying supply chain resilience? Like, what are some of the metrics that you guys think about?
I think if I had to best respond. Our biggest one is on-time performance, right? When we say essentially, when we provide to a customer that you can expect your cargo by X date, that's essentially our biggest KPI. But then there's also other factors that come into this, the environmental impact, right? The cost saving. So I don't know if I can actually answer that in a succinct way, because there are so many factors that come into it. It really depends on, being a customer driven company, it will always depend on what that specific customer best outcome looks like, right? If they want a faster transit time and are maybe a little bit less worried about the environmental impact as well as the cost, then we can do it that way. If they're more worried about the polar opposite, we're able to adjust that way. But I think from a resilience standpoint, it's being able to get your end goal, right? Your end delivery date as close as possible within budget for that customer or for that good.
I actually have a question. So
Sir.
some of your biggest customers, I don't know who they would be, maybe Home Depot, maybe Walmart and so forth.
Yep.
How much do your largest customers have an influence on your operations? I mean, do you cater to those big customers, or are they just part of you're just trying to have a good service for everybody?
Well, I love that question because it allows me to self-promote here a little bit. So Maersk as a whole, we have divided essentially our focus around the strategic relationships with our customers. So the global key clients, of which I'm a part of, essentially they are to be determined a global key client. We have 88 key clients around the world, 26 of which are headquartered within North America. So within those 26, there are 10 that are directly linked to me that are automotive, chem, technology, and fast-moving consumer goods. And so those are the customers that will drive the vast majority of our decisions. Those are the customers that we build our strategy, our infrastructure around them. We do have, I hate to call them tiers because that sounds bad, but essentially that is tiers of what customers are from their global scale, from their level of growth with us, from their commitment to environmental standards. All of those things will determine, it's not just the big ocean shippers. We have customers that ship very little ocean and are massive air customers. We have customers that are very focused on ground, but as long as they have that strategic alignment within Maersk, we do build our strategy around them. So that's been a change over the last few years with Maersk.
So that includes stuff like how you schedule your vessels.
Correct.
Or how? Okay.
Correct. We have a strategic customer council every year, and our top customers are invited to that, and we literally directly ask their opinion. And we do have customer surveys to be asking that opinion. We have multiple touch points with those customers to make sure that we are serving them the best way that they need to be served.
Great. Other questions?
Hey, I'm Hung. I'm currently a junior here in Syracuse, majoring in supply chain and finance. I just have a question about you, for you.
Yeah.
So, just about a general question about supply chain. Like, since COVID pandemic, do you think now in 2024 and then in the future, do you see growth, or are there any more challenges with the supply chain, and what are solutions for Maersk to comprehend that?
Well, first and foremost, I need to know, did you win your game last night?
Yeah, we won the
Yes, good man.
championship.
Good man. Good man. Good man. Good man. To answer your question, there's probably 100 obstacles and global events that we haven't even been able to plan for yet. So I think, unfortunately, that seems to be the ongoing trend within today's society, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's weather, all of those things can and will impact us. So the way that we are doing it partly is through the network of the future, but it is being able to be in every aspect, right? Before, when we were just an ocean carrier, we had very limited ability to adjust and amend and have that impact on what our customer essentially receives from us from that service standpoint. When you really look at it, when you think of, since you're a soccer guy, you think of your penalty kick takers, right? You always put your best first and your best last, right? So you really need to make sure that if you can pick up the goods on time, if you can get it out of that warehouse on time, if you can produce it on time, yes, not taking any credit away from that middle voyage, but that's typically where a lot of the problems come in. If you get the pickup done right and you get that delivery done right, you've probably avoided the major minefields within that process. So that's where we're really trying to expand our reach, become flexible, become more adaptable, continue to grow, right? I would be shocked if Maersk does not continue to expand via acquisition, or be it external companies or by acquisition of more assets. That's essentially our current model for the foreseeable future. So that's how we plan to adapt, is keeping a close heartbeat to our customer, hoping that we can guesstimate the next world event that's gonna hit and derail everybody and respond as quickly as possible.
I think one of the other really interesting, innovative things that Maersk is doing is autonomous operation of ships. So imagine these big vessels with nobody on them. And so I know Maersk has actually been testing it for the past couple of years, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty innovative technology to do that. Right.
Same thing with trucking, aircraft, nothing yet. But that is happening with trucks as well in North America.
And what about opportunities for students, entry level? Where do students go if they're interested in Maersk?
So the best place to go is maersk.com and to our career site. And then I was actually speaking with a student about this last night, because it is such a massive company, right? And it's not just supply chain, it's the finance, it's the HR, it's everything in between. The best
estate.
place, I'm sorry?
Real estate as well.
Real estate as well, absolutely. Legal, right? Legal is involved. Everything, I think the best place to start is our website and understanding what a job description looks like, right? What is a job title? What does that mean on your day-to-day? How would that job interact? What are the qualifications? Things of that nature. I was hoping to have a representative from HR with me today, so I'm also double hatting as a representative of HR. I'm happy to speak with anybody later in the evening about career opportunities. But depending on the type of role, right? Maersk does like people at physical locations, but for a role such as mine that's in the commercial area, I work from home, right? I live in Chicago, Illinois, or the suburbs of Chicago. And so if I'm not traveling, I don't have an office, I don't have a desk. So there is that level of flexibility. And even with our office employees, it's the hybrid model, right? There's only a certain amount of days that they want people to come in. It's all based on that department, how they agree to have that take place. But there's opportunity at Maersk, and we need the new ideas, right? We're certainly not a company that you walk in the door and we tell you what to do. I think it was also Steve Jobs that said that, right? We hire people that tell us what to do, right? We need those new ideas. We need that innovation, that new energy, that new blood, so you can have the goofy smile when you're on a vessel tour, just like I did. That's what we need at Maersk. So if you're interested, please come see us.
And there's opportunities for international. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's 130 countries I
Oh
think
yeah,
you're
yeah.
operating in,
We'll
right?
send you anywhere you want to go.
Right. Any other questions? Oh, yep, okay. This I think will be our last question. I know those students who have been kind of holding on and needed to leave for the class break, please don't let us make you late for class. And then we'll let the next group in.
How do you guys as a company hold yourself responsible to hit your sustainability goal in 2040?
I'm not sure how to answer that question, to be honest. I mean, I know we do have the KPIs certainly in the operational. And perhaps I don't know that just because I'm not in the operational field within our company, but I do know that is each individual products, depending on which product it is. Some would obviously have more aggressive goals than others, but each product would have its own individual progressional KPI as the years goes on. But I do know that our major landmark to essentially get to our biggest point, our biggest evolution is 2030, because we feel that if we get to 2030 and we can get to those what appear to be lower numbers, right? I think from the ocean, it was only 25%. Once you snowball it from there and get that into place, a decade can go by really quickly and can snowball really quickly. So I would say essentially it's at a product and geography level, depending on whatever those legal or geographical restrictions may be, and then building off of that. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.